for welcoming me here to Toronto. My name is Nico Barawid. I am, as Amanda said, head of international partnerships at Nova Credit. And if I could describe Nova Credit in one sentence, it is that we are building a software platform that enables immigrants to bring in their international credit data in a format that is equivalent to US or Canadian bureau format. Let me actually introduce Nova Credit to you by telling you a little bit more about my beautiful mother on the screen. So when my mother was finishing up her medical education in the Philippines, she was a super credit-worthy borrower. She had an apartment whose lease payment she paid on time every month. She had a credit card that she paid in full on time every month. She had a mobile phone. She had various trade lines. And despite her very robust credit history abroad, when she moved to the US, and this is the same as in Canada as well, she was effectively locked out of the financial sector. She had trouble getting an apartment without paying 6 months of deposit. She could only get a $500 secured credit card. She even had difficulty getting a mortgage, and let's not even consider the difficulty of getting an auto loan or anything else. And this problem is not just unique to my mother. Especially in Canada, the population of newcomers has grown substantially over the last few decades, so much so that today, Canada has the highest percentage of foreign-born nationals of the entire G8, and in Toronto in particular, as you all well know, over 50% of the population is foreign-born. It's not just that there's a high absolute number of immigrants. That pool is increasingly tilted towards wealthy and skilled newcomers that are very likely to be credit active in their home country. All of the banks have recognized that this is a large, growing, profitable customer segment worth serving. So all top 5 banks in Canada have business units, marketing, in many cases even credit policy devoted towards the newcomer segment. However, when they underwrite these newcomers, they do so in an incredibly manual and time-intensive process. They ask for documentation, they ask for proof of income, and they often can't get their credit card for several days at a time. At Nova, we're solving this problem. We built a two-sided marketplace where on what we call the supply of data, we are buying data from overseas by partnering with credit bureaus that are substantially similar to the credit bureaus in North America on behalf of the immigrant. And then on the other hand, on the demand for that data, we're selling to financial institutions, to FinTech companies, to property managers, and now, as of the last couple of months, we've partnered with TransUnion to sell our data into Canada. What we do when we do that is that we create a Nova Credit passport. In the same way that someone can move across borders and bring their personal identity with them with the passport, we're now aggregating via XML all of the data from all of those bureaus, standardizing it so that banks can therefore underwrite and serve this segment. So let's hop into a little bit more about what this solution looks like. So this is an example bank application, online application where someone would be applying for a credit card from the very famous Barrow Loan Company. And at the last step, where someone might ask for information needed for a credit check, we would have a copy that says if you don't have a Canadian credit history but have one overseas, we can help you bring that in. So via a simple JavaScript tag, we can drop in our button that's there that says import credit report, and the applicant would click on that and would then be popped up on an iframe where they could choose their country where they have credit history. So for example, if an applicant chose India, then we would be effectively communicating with the Indian Bureau to bring in that data into the US and Canada. So we previously coordinated with the Indian Bureau to understand the fields needed to query the Indian database abroad and bring that data into Canada. So in our sandbox user, Raj Du, for example, Raj has to supply his father's last name, Du, his most recent Indian phone number, his email address, his most recent Indian address in New Delhi. So Raj enters in all of this same basic information that a bank would be asking a Canadian consumer about their Canadian history. Similarly, instead of a SIN or social security number in the US, the Bureau requires that we ask one of 3 questions, or provide a national identification number. And then most importantly, we ask Raj for his consent to act as his agent in India and bring that data into Canada in connection with a Canadian permissible purpose, like a credit card application. So Raj gives his consent. We then take the data packet that we just populated using Raj's PII, and we send that over to the Indian Bureau. But before we can actually get it, we have to further authenticate Raj to make sure that it was actually Raj filling in his information as opposed to someone else. We do this via a series of out-of-wallet knowledge-based authentication questions, substantially similar to what you see in the US and Canada. Have you had a credit card from one of these banks? Have you lived at one of these addresses? Once Raj successfully authenticates, then what's going to happen is that he's going to click submit, and then the iframe is going to finish. He's going to go back to the online application and then can complete that banking application. So what's happening in the back end as we're sending the report to the bank for which Raj was applying for a credit card is that we've taken the raw XML format of the Indian Bureau data, we've post-processed it for compliance in Canada, and then we present it via our API, or in this case renders as a PDF, in a format that is uniform across countries. So you see here, we have a score which has been Canadianized using TransUnion Credit Vision from the raw Indian score. But the most important part of this is the raw trade line data. So you'll see here a series of circles which are per trade line, so credit card, auto loan, et cetera. Monthly repayment history, where the green circles are paid on time. The red circle, for example, is 120 days late, so that an adjudicator, an underwriter, can make a sophisticated credit decision in the same way that they would using Canadian credit data. We see this for multiple trade lines, and we see, for example, inquiry history, employment history, address history. We present everything we have because our aim is to solve the problem that when people move, credit history doesn't, and at Nova Credit, we are changing that.